Welcome into 11 Personnel presented by Monticello Bank. Nick Roush here with Adam Luckett to get you ready for the first road trip of the 2024 Kentucky football season. The Cats are going to Oxford to take on the fifth-ranked Ole Miss Rebels. And Luckett, it's exciting to get on the road. It felt a little different walking up to the practice facility here in the artificial crowd noise. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to breaking down this game because there's so many similarities with that 2022 game. It's kind of odd. You've got your RB1 playing in his first game. It's in week 5. It's a noon kickoff. Ole Miss hasn't played nobody yet. Paul. I mean, there's a lot of similarities. Like it, Ole Miss though does look a lot different defensively, and that's where this game I I don't know exactly what to expect from that side, but I hope Kentucky has its A game and is ready to be at its best, like we saw them a couple weeks ago against Georgia.
Yeah, I think it's obviously, this is a tough situation. It's a tough challenge.
Yeah.
It's a big measuring stick, I think, for the team. In a lot of ways, I think for the offense. Because I think, Nick, I think the offense has played well. And, you can nitpick, and I don't think they've been great in any game, but I think they've done good things in 3 out of 4. And then they have one game where they were just an absolute travesty, like just unbelievably awful. And I think they're getting stuck with the awful game, even though we have 3 other data points that tell us that they're probably not awful.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably not a top 25 offense, but this is not a sub 100 offensive operation. But I feel like people just want to tag them as, you go on our board and it's terrible offense, awful offense, terrible, terrible, terrible. It's hard to argue against that because that data point was so bad.
It was real
So
bad.
to me, this is a chance, I think, for the offense to show that was an aberration, that they can be a good offense. And then defensively, Nick, I think I'm going to leave this game having a pretty good feeling what I believe what the Kentucky defense is. Are they top 15 good? Are they top 25 good? Are they top 10 good? If they go in here and really give Ole Miss a difficult time, then you've got reasons to believe that this has got a chance to be Mark Stoops' best defense. If it's just so-so, then I still think it could be a top 15 defense. If it's a bad day, I still think they can be a top 25 defense. But if they're able to go in here and win more battles than they lose on a play-to-play basis against this Ole Miss offense, I would feel really, really good about this unit leaving this game. And then that would make me feel even better about the remaining toss-up games on the schedule. Because if you could slow down Ole Miss offense, you're probably going to put some of these other offenses in the torture chamber the rest of these games. And that's going to give you a really good chance, I think, to win a lot of those toss-up games, which is really how we're going to determine the season at the end of the day.
We will get to all the matchups, all the X's and O's behind this matchup between Kentucky and Ole Miss, but we need to start with the biggest news of the week, and we need to start by telling you that we are proudly presented by Monticello Bank, where people matter and where they've mattered for more than 120 years, because Monticello Bank, they're putting the numbers on your side to get you the best rates possible, whether you're shopping for a new car loan, maybe you want to refi or buy a new home. Monticello Bank, they will take care of you. They have, 14 different markets. They've got 21 locations. You're going to get some great customer service no matter what when you stop in a Monticello Bank. And then they can also help you online. Just visit them at nbcbank.com. Monticello Bank, where people matter. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, and proud presenting sponsors of 11 Personnel. I hope it matters that Chip Trayanum is back. He's returned to practice. They're unwilling to say whether or not he will play, but let's be real, Luckett. He's going to play. Chip Trayanum, number 4. This should be the first time we see him in action in a Kentucky uniform. And I tried to kind of work my way through all of the possible scenarios that we could get with Trayanum. And there's a lot of different outcomes, But I know one thing for certain with Chip. He's a big guy who's the most physically impressive of all the running backs. He has the most experience. But as Bush Hamden said on Tuesday, the freshmen have shown a lot, and you gotta keep watering that plant, right? Like you can't just cut it off right there. You gotta let them keep growing. So they will be involved, but how much are any of them involved? What exactly do you have high expectations for Chip Trayanum in this game, and maybe if not this game, for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I'll start it off with this. Do we think the red shirt is in play for Jason Patterson now?
They haven't
Why didn't he play last week?
They haven't said what it is. So if it's a 4 to 6 weeker, yes, definitely, because the bowl game doesn't count either towards your 4. Right. So if they're down to Demi, Chip, and Jamarian, then yeah, they'll try to hold off those 2 games.
It's just a volume issue. You get 30 carries in a game. 30 divided by 3 is 10. Someone's going to get 13 or 14. Someone's going to get 8. The other one's going to get 4. It's hard to play 4 backs,
Right. Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I think it's very interesting. This is literally the same situation as 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Going to Ole Miss, game 5.
Mm-hmm.
You get Chris Rodriguez back, game 5. Now, Rodriguez was just more proven than Chip Trayanum. You still don't know what you're going to get. And Kentucky's running game as a whole is much better than it was in that season.
They couldn't run the ball at all without Chris. And some of that rust showed. I have a little bit more confidence that Chip will be better conditioned than Chris was. But here's the thing, Luckett. You can be in great track shape, but being in football game shape is a completely different story.
Yeah, well, he's not going to – Kentucky needed 25 carries from Rodriguez this game. They don't need 25 carries or touches from Trayanum this game. It's going to be more like 10 to 12 maybe.
I was going to say, is 13 and a half you going over or under?
I would hammer that under in this game.
Here's the part that I liked hearing from Vince Marrow that I don't think it's been an issue, but I think it can be one, especially for Wilcox. Pass protection. Like, Chip knows what the hell he's doing. He's done it before. He's a physical guy. This could be an upgrade. So maybe it's only 13 carries, but it's 20 snaps. And the other 7 or 8, he's in pass pro.
Yeah. Where did the Kentucky offense struggle against Georgia? They moved the ball from the 20 to the Georgia 40, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But when the field started to get smaller is where they found issues. In the red zone, they haven't been great this year. There were issues against Ohio in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think maybe his biggest value can come when you get into scoring territory, having a bigger tailback to get it to help you stay ahead of the chains. I think that's where you're probably going to see the value with him. Not only this game, but I think just moving forward as the season progresses. Because you still, like Wilcox, Nick, he needs to get touches. He's arguably the most explosive player you have on offense.
Yeah.
You're not getting Dan Key had a huge game, but you're not getting, you thought you were getting explosives from Brown and Macklin. That was probably part of the plan. You're getting none from those guys pretty much. Wilcox has clearly been your most explosive rusher. He's clearly been your best creator as a runner. Just look at the missed tackle numbers that we've alluded to. So he needs touches. Like, you got to give him touches to see what he can create. But I do think when you get down into scoring territory, you get into the red zone or into the extended red zone territory, I think there could be value there for Trayanum. And that's where I would like to see him in this game. But I think it's easy to get sucked into, they're getting their number one tailback back. That's the offense, the rushing offense is going to boom. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think he's a nice added player, but I don't know how much he's raising the ceiling of this group.
There's one thing they could use some more of, explosiveness. Do you think that he can turn some of those 3-yard runs into 15 to 25-yard runs.
We haven't really seen him be this super explosive back in his career. So to expect that now, I don't know if it's fair to him. So my answer would be no. I think you'll see kind of what you see from Demi. Would be like, I think with Trainum, what you're hoping for is he would be a better Demi. Like maybe you get a yard or two more efficiency wise. But I don't know if he's going to, I don't see him coming in and ripping off or being Kenneth Walker and just ripping off 40-yard runs. Would be kind of my evaluation.
Okay. Well, I know there was a lot of, it's easy.
He's never had more than 10 plus yard runs in a season. And he's had, in 2 of those seasons, he had more than 70 carries. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. It's just when we were trying to do the easy comps back when Kentucky signed Chip Trainum, it was, is he more of a Ray Davis, or is he more of a Benny Snell, or is he more of a Chris Rodriguez? And we leaned towards the Ray Davis despite the lack of production thus far, because he showed some of that short area quickness, that burst.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can get a little bit of juice out of him. But as you mentioned earlier, the red zone is where they could certainly use him. This is an opponent like it that you need to you can't settle for a lot of 3s. You got to get 7s. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room, because you know they're going to score. Even if your defense plays well, they're going to find their shots. And it's a different game, but in the same realm of that Oklahoma Tennessee, that defense they held Tennessee to 23 points,
Yeah, this gets into the magic number. Like,
right.
What's the magic number on both sides? What's the magic number points wise on defense and on offense? Nick, it feels like unless you have just a massive advantage in the turnover column, you're probably going to need 28, maybe probably north of 30.
Yeah.
So if you play Kentucky Stoops ball, you get 10, 11 possessions in a game, 3 points per drive. That means if you create, let's say, 5 scoring opportunities, you need to max those out, right? Like you need to score touchdowns probably on 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Or you need to score 3 touchdowns and kick at least 2 field goals, and maybe gives you a chance. Yeah. But you got to maximize your scoring chances. You're going to create scoring opportunities in this game. Kentucky's going to create those, I think, most of the season, because they're efficient. A run game is efficient where they're going to be able to move the ball. And we saw them do that against Georgia. They just couldn't finish drives. And so that's where I get to the Trainum point. That's where I think his real value could be. And that's where I would prefer them to use Wimsatt instead of like plugging him in at the 25 when you're beginning a possession. Because what we've seen him is like second play of a series. Where I would rather them, that's when I would use him. Like that's where I think his value would be, when you get inside the opponent's 40 and to try to get that extra hat in the run game to maybe get ahead of the chains down there. But that's really offensively, that's what this game is. One, it's can you protect? That's my biggest concern in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Can you protect and avoid havoc plays? And then can you maximize your scoring chances? Kentucky went down there 2 years ago and didn't do that.
Right.
And that's why they lost. So you've got to maximize your scoring chances in this game. And then I think on the flip side, defensively, you can't give them any cheap scores. What I mean by cheap scores, anything over 40 yards. Like they've got to get down in the scoring territory and then score that way. And then when you get them there, you've got to get a couple stops, because they're probably going to get 6 or 7 drives down that way. Just that's how good their offense is.
To stick with the Kentucky offense, let's talk a little bit about this Ole Miss defense, because it is when we think about Ole Miss and we think about Lane Kiffin, it's throwing the clipboard in the air, it's putting up big numbers. But this offseason, their big transfer portal acquisitions, yes, they got Juice Wells, and yes, they lost Quinshon Judkins, but for me, they stole all the headlines because Lane Kiffin said, we aren't big enough, we aren't long enough in our front 7. When he talked about what makes Kentucky such a great defense and NFL defense, to use his adjective, was those guys in the front seven. And having one of those dudes that's going to be a first-round NFL talent, a special talent, and that's Walter Nolan in the interior of the defensive line. He's been an absolute game wrecker so far this year. And now, granted, they ain't played nobody, Paul, but he has been excellent. And he's one of those guys that, hell, for how long? I feel like I've heard about Walter Nolan for years. It's just the light hasn't been on there consistently. But they've got it turned on right now. And with Pete Golding calling the shots, I know he had somewhat mixed reviews during his time at Alabama. It was a little up and down, but he's got them playing well. And that to me is just the biggest difference when looking at Ole Miss now versus Ole Miss in the past, is just what they've done up front and how that's going to challenge the Kentucky offense. Because if they're going to play aggressive, you have to do whatever you possibly can to get out of obvious passing situations on 3rd and long.
Yeah, I think you don't want to be there. And they got there too much in Ohio game. That was one of my bigger concerns for how efficient they were. They were in 3rd and long way too much. Penalties, negative plays. So you can't live like that against them. I think you got to have a similar game plan to Georgia, Nick, where your number one goal is just to get ahead of the chains and then to give yourself a chance on 3rd down. You know what I'm saying? And so, because that's what really was the key to the success against Georgia, was they just got ahead of the chains and they were in 3rd and 4 all night. They're 3rd and 2. They did what the Commanders did to the Bengals on Monday night, which is death by 1,000 cuts, which is
you're bleeding out right now. You're bleeding out.
Which is as a defense, that's just it's the worst feeling in the world. And so if you do that for a whole full game, eventually you would hope that would lead to aggressiveness, and then you can sneak one over the top. They just couldn't ever do that against Georgia. So that's kind of, I think, the kind of philosophy they have to play. And I think you heard Bush Hamdan kind of allude to that in his press conference. He said, paraphrasing, "We know what this is. We know who we are. We know what we have to do to win our games. We have our identity." And it's not necessarily the most fun way to play, but it feels like what they have to do. So that's going to be real important. It's just, can you dictate the terms of the game? That's going to be big. Ole Miss is a boxer that wants to come out and knock you out in the first 3 rounds.
Yes.
They do not want to fight 15 rounds. They want to be Apollo Creed and Rocky, and not end this in 2 or 3 rounds, and then do a dance, do a celebration. They want to blow teams out. They're built to play from ahead and blow teams out.
Which
Kentucky has to make this a fight that goes to the table, to the decision table, and then get them on the ropes late, and then try to body blow, and hit them with a knockout punch in the 11th, 12th round. And that's how Kentucky will win this game. So Kentucky has to eat punches early in this game. But they can't have the one that just totally almost knocks them out. So you have to weather the storm. That's a big thing. When you play any team like Ole Miss, or I think Tennessee's the same way, you have to weather the early storm and then get them in the 4th quarter and try to beat them with body blows.
Can I admit something, Luckett?
Sure.
I've never seen a Rocky movie.
Well, Duke's about of the age. You should wait till Duke gets a little bit older, Frank get a little bit older, and you all should just watch them, the first 4 together. I mean, the 4th one is like, you'll just love it. It's the most American thing, and it's cheesy, but you'll just absolutely love it.
Ivan Drago, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And my issue is they would play them on AMC, and so I remember turning it on one time, and it was the first one, and they're showing the final fight, and it's just like, and they
age well though. Even the fight scenes age well. Like, they still are legit fight scenes.
Yeah, but that was my thing, is I didn't think the fight, I thought it was bad because they're just throwing hooks and their faces are just swollen and bloody. And I'm like, one of those is knocking them out. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, it's a movie.
Okay,
I
know. I've seen Creed. So technically I've seen one of them. I enjoyed
Creed's good. Creed 1 was really good. Creed 2, not so much.
Creed movie. Yeah. Yeah. Because, isn't the second one, it's like him and Rocky's
Drago's son.
Or Drago's son. There we go.
But Rocky 1 through 4. 3 is the worst one. 1 is the best one. 2 is really good. 2 is not better than 1, but 2 is really good. And then 4 is just, it's kind of got, I mean, they go out there a little bit, but it's just, I mean, you just want to hook that into your veins. Like, I couldn't imagine going to see Rocky 4 in the movie theater. Like in the 80s when the Cold War was going on. That had to be like the most patriotic movie of that time.
And I'm sure there was most of their
the soundtrack is incredible.
Trips. Yeah.
Soundtrack's incredible. They're fighting on Christmas night.
Is that the
Russia.
one where he runs up the mountain and
He trains in the Russian snow. Drago's using all this technical equipment, and Rocky's just lifting up a wagon in a barn somewhere in Russia.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You're right. I got to just do the American thing. Go see him. But to your point, I believe Ole Miss has outscored its opponents in the first quarter 140-3 or 140-6, something like that. So a fast start is critical. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a fast start a la Steven Johnson at Louisville in 2016 where you're scoring on your first play. Like, just move the ball offensively, keep it out of their hands, get a stop. Because the thing, too, with this Ole Miss defense, I know they haven't played anybody, but some of the numbers are staggering. Luckett. They have forced 31 punts through 4 games. Only Iowa has forced more punts. They've only allowed 14 third down conversions. 1.1 yards per carry. Now, that's sack yardage and stuff, too. But even when you take, if it's net yards, it's like 2.4. 5.5 points per game. I mean, the stats are jarring. And the other one, too, havoc rate. 19.2%, second best in the country so far. I mean, they have just completely gobbled up opponents to this point in the season.
Yeah, I think the Ole Miss defense, one, they spent big in the portal, Nick, and they've hit on a bunch of guys. Chris Paul Jr., Arkansas linebackers playing like at an all SEC level. Walter Nolan looks like one of the better defensive tackles in college football. And then they play complementary football for how they want to play terms of the game. They want to make it a track meet. They're coming after your butt. They're going to bring numbers. Mm-hmm. They're going to bring blitzes. They're going to try to create TFLs to get off the field quickly. And they have overwhelmed the teams they have played to this point. For Kentucky in this game, like for them to win, I think they have to score a cheap touchdown. And what I mean by that is either you score on a big explosive play over 50 yards, you get a defensive or a special team score, or you get a turnover where you're getting the ball in the red zone, right? Or you're getting a short field. Kentucky's probably going to need at least one of those. And I think for any team really to beat Ole Miss, you're probably going to need those. They're going to take chances, and you're going to have one-on-one opportunities. Can you win them on the outside? We'll see. But that's how you're going to have to win because they are taking risk on defense because they know they're not afraid to get in a shootout, 1. And 2, they know that like their worst path is if you just let offenses methodically move the football and sit on the ball for 40 minutes where the offense can't get snaps. Mm-hmm. So they're gonna take some risk and pressure and do all that. So for Kentucky, how do you counter that? Like for them going in this game, their goal is we're not letting them sit here and run the ball efficiently down the field.
Yeah.
So I think everyone assumes, Kentucky will just come in here and run it. Ole Miss is not going to let them. They're going to get in the box. So Kentucky, to get them out of that, is going to have to hit on probably an explosive or 2 early to get them to where they can efficiently do that in the game. So that's going to be, I think, something important to watch early. But they're coming after you, and they've overwhelmed teams early. Now, will they continue to overwhelm? I don't know, but they've got pros on this defense, and that showed up early in the season.
It also requires the wide receivers to win some one-on-ones. They're going to be matched up. You got to beat guys. I mean, there's really no other way to put it, especially in some of the quick stuff. Like we haven't seen a lot of success underneath, but hitting a slant or two to Denke early on can go a long way.
Yeah, well, they showed the tunnel screen last week when the tunnel and goal was coming off of that action.
Yep.
And so, can you hit that? Or even if you screen, can you catch them in a blitz? I mean, that might be a cheap way to get a big explosive. So you're going to have to – Kentucky's going to have to find ways to get – like, they can't just get slaughtered in this explosive play battle. I mean, that's what happened against South Carolina. That's essentially why they lost. South Carolina got explosives and they didn't. Georgia got more than they did, and that was a big reason why they lost. They cannot get slaughtered. They have to play this somewhat close to a draw, and that's both sides. Ole Miss is going to get their big gains, but you can't have them get the 50-plus ones. You got to keep them 25-30, make them still earn scores. But Kentucky's got to find a way to take advantage of an over-aggressive, I think, defense and find a way to hit some explosives. And the big question mark for Ole Miss is their secondary entering this season. Like, their front seven is really good, but the secondary is a question mark. And the teams that have success against them probably are going to be the ones that can take advantage of that secondary. So for Kentucky, like, they need the receivers, man. Like, for this offense to reach its potential, the receivers got to play. You know, I think it was a really good game from Denke, and he's played well, I think, all year. But they need more out of Baron Brown, and Jamori Macklin. Like, Macklin didn't have a target in this last game. They were counting on him to play a big role in this offense. Like, they got to get something from him.
I don't think there's any other way around it, especially for a team that's going to play aggressive.
Yeah, but it's not even just an Ole Miss game. It's for the season. You know, like, Kentucky's run game is doing some really good stuff. But the stuff they're doing should have made it easier on this passing game. Like, they should be getting dudes. They should be getting wide open and creating explosives based off what they're doing run game wise. But I watch these games and it's hard without the TV copy or without the all 22. But, like, why is Key the only one open? Down the field. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like, they got to be better. They're juniors now. I mean, they're old guys who have played a lot of football. Go get open. Go get open and let this offense maximize its potential. Hopefully, Kentucky fans get treated to a few high-flying plays down in Vaught Hemingway Stadium, where if you don't have your ticket yet, it's a pretty easy drive, 7 hours away. Just hop on the Game Time app. Go to gametime.co. There's some pretty affordable tickets still out there. $47 to get in row K right now. That's a hell of a deal. $50. I mean, there's a lot of $50 tickets to be able to get in to watch the Cats take on Ole Miss, a stadium that there's really not a terrible seat in the house. These are all like in that lower bowl and not that sort of upper deck area. So going over to Game Time, the fastest, most efficient way to get tickets. They'll get delivered directly to your phone. You get to see your seat before you buy. It's an outstanding app, outstanding deals all over the place. And it's an even better deal when you use promo code KSR. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So download the Game Time app and use redeem code KSR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply at Game Time. Hopefully we'll see some Kentucky fans down in the Grove. Where we will be there, getting there Friday night or Friday afternoon, somewhere around there. It's the early start does complicate our Friday night a little bit, Luckett. But I think the move for us is going to be to make Saturday night our night, because that's where we're going to be celebrating. Because Kentucky's defense is going to shut down Jackson Dart & Co. Where I don't want to be in a similar situation where it's the Kentucky defense begging the Kentucky offense just to score some points and win this game because the defense played well enough to win it. And how can they play well enough to win it? It's stopping that run game and making Jackson Dart beat you as a pocket passer. That's kind of what we said the game plan was going to be 2 years ago. And he beat you as a pocket passer, but they didn't score a ton of points. That was a case where
he's a lot better though. That's the concern.
That's
He's
true.
not the same player they saw 2 years ago.
And his weapons are a lot better as well.
I hear that take, but I go into this game thinking anytime Dart doesn't pass, it's a win. Like anytime they run the ball, it feels like a win for the defense. You know what I'm saying? Because how filthy their pass game has been, and let's face it, that was a big weakness for Kentucky last year. It's been better this year, but this is going to be really the first spread offense we've seen them try to slow down to stop. And they're going to, when he drops back to pass, they're going to find guys and they're going to create explosive plays. So, you know, I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't in a lot of areas in this game. To me, it's not necessarily can you just totally stop the run, which obviously you want to do, but it's one, don't give up any explosives in the ground game. And two, I think that's really important. Because one of their touchdowns 2 years ago, Nick, was a Judkins 50-yard rip. He split the safeties on a run. So in this, I think you've got to, again, they're going to move the ball through the 20s. Can you get stops when they get down there and the windows get smaller? That's really, for Kentucky on defense, I think that's where the game is potentially going to be won, and then can they force takeaways? You know, that's big too. Can you get some key takeaway or two?
A little bend, don't break against the quarterback
because
they're just going to move. Anybody.
Yeah, he's thrown for 370 yards in each game. So, and he's making big boy throws if you watch the tape. So, they got weapons like Trey. They're force feeding Trey Harris.
Juice Wells had, yeah.
But, I mean, they got Juice Wells. Jordan Watkins is a good player. Caden Prescorn, they're tight end. At any point, they're just going to sneak him up the seam, and he's going to be wide open because you're worried about everything else. So you just got to try to limit the explosives and then win backed up. I think that's kind of where the game is going to be won if you're Kentucky. I do think you've got to find a way to force incompletions. Can't let him sit out here and just complete 80% of his passes. Like he's going to win some, but you got to win some too and get some PBUs and some throwaways from the pressure from your pass rush to create a throwaway. So that's important too. But it's a tall challenge, I think, for this defense because they do deserve some benefit of the doubt on offense. They've been a top 15 offense the last really ever since Kiffin got there. Bare minimum, they're probably going to be top 15 again. You look at the pieces, there are real reasons to believe they're going to be a top 5 offense. They're going to move the football and score points. You just got to turn touchdown drives into field goal drives, and that's our touchdown drives into turnover on downs at the 35 or at the 15. You know, can you win there? That would be, I think, the path because this is a game where Kentucky's going to get outgained, but you got to find a way to win it, even though you get outgained. So that means winning the margin, winning situationally, red zone, third down, turnovers, things of that nature.
Well, and the big one you mentioned, we talked about it a little bit on the podcast, the football podcast earlier this week, but the statistics of Kentucky's defense, the touchdown scoring drives, if you aren't giving the other team great field position, they aren't scoring. Only 2 touchdown scoring drives of 60-plus yards so far this year. Big opportunity for Aiden Laros to go show us how big that leg is, flip the field, make them earn an extra 20 yards if they're going to punch it in the end zone, right? Like there's a big difference between getting the ball at the 25
absolutely.
And the 38, you know? That
matters, yeah.
That's going to be huge in this game. Yeah.
Yeah. If he can do that changes things from a defensive perspective because field position has not been good. It's gotten a little better the last couple of weeks, but all the touchdown drives they've given up have been like 65 yards or less. So if you're making Ole Miss start drives inside their own 30, Kentucky, I feel safe saying Kentucky's going to win their fair share of battles.
It's going to go out there and do it. The defensive line has, I think, been as good, if not slightly better than advertised. They've had a ton of tackles for loss. You started to see some of the turnovers follow. It'd be nice to have a few big turnover opportunities on Saturday at Ole Miss. I'm juiced up for this game. I think the crowd there is going to be pretty rowdy.
Yeah.
I know Matt gave him some catnip that they are just taking and running with, so they'll be well lubricated. It's the first SEC game of the year for them, Luckett, and I know when we went through this a year ago, I mean that was a similar situation, right? Like you play your first 3 games against a bunch of
Very
bad
similar.
teams, you go to Vandy, yeah, and you're finally just like, oh, we got a real game happening. It might be a nooner, but we're pounding some beers. We're getting up early and getting after it. So they'll be fired up. They'll be ready to go for the stripe out. Did you see that they have they're giving students a fast pass? You can purchase a fast pass to get into the game.
Yeah, this is also the same place where it costs like $100 to get in the bar. So,
It's crazy.
I'm not surprised that is a thing.
What's crazy too is season tickets before you pay some sort of $50 fee are $154. And then they're like, well, you can cut in line for $150 for one game. Like,
Yeah.
what?
And yeah, another thing about the crowd, Nick, this schedule for them is backloaded. Like they don't play another home game after this until October 26th. Now they get Oklahoma, Georgia, and Mississippi State at home in like the last month plus. But this is the last home game really until like the final push of the season. So I think they probably know that, right? So they're probably they haven't seen their team play someone. So I think you're gonna get a great crowd. What's gonna be different about this year? You weren't there, but that stadium I would say was 30 to 40% Kentucky fans in that game. The visitor side was, I think you could say 50-50 or maybe closer lean Kentucky. Like there were a ton of Kentucky fans at that game, and they were loud in big moments in that game.
Yeah.
They're not Kentucky. That's not going to happen this time around. Not a lot of people are going from the Kentucky side. It's not going to be a very big road turnout, so that's going to be more crowd noise. Now, to Matt's point, it's only a 50,000 seat stadium. Like Kentucky's going to play in much louder venues. Florida's going to be louder. Tennessee's going to be way louder this season. And what is the other road game I'm skipping on top of my head? Texas is going to be. Texas is not known for being loud, but it's a math thing.
Huge.
They've got twice as many people, and so now that stadium, they're on top of you a little bit, and it gets loud in there in key moments, but it's not the loudest venue Kentucky's going to play in. So there is that aspect, but it's going to be a legitimate good atmosphere, and they're going to be fired up.
They'll be rocking and rolling. I don't know. I don't think we'll be ripping any fireballs at 9 a.m. Getting ready for that. But we'll be hanging out, though, down there at the Grove. Catwalk 8:45 Central Time. For those who are planning to meet up with other Cats fans, you'll be able to see all of us down there. And if you're tailgating the Grove, just let us know. We'd love to come by, say hey.
Well, I also say this. A lot of people are upset about the early kickoff. You go there, Nick. I compared it to going to Vegas. You go to the Grove, you don't care what time it is. Like, it very much, the excitement, the adrenaline, and the atmosphere that place creates, you really don't care. It's like I compared it to it felt like going to a 3:30 game. You just forget what time it is. You're up early. You know, it's
less time to wait around for the game, too.
There's going to be big game energy here. You're going to be excited for this game, and like the Grove, it'll be fun. Or like I had a ball early, even though it was an early kick last time, and people are going to be out there having fun. They'll be out there in force early in the morning, so it's just different because of how it's set up and how serious they take the tailgate. Yeah. So if you're going, don't be too upset about that. You're still going to get a full Grove experience, even though maybe you don't have 7 hours to tailgate. You're trying to pack it into maybe 2 plus 3 hours. I
have faith in you. You can do this.
And then you can go to Chili's in Batesville and have a good time later that night. For those of you staying in Batesville, I'm sure there's a few of you. That's what we did last year or 2 years ago.
It's going to be a good time down in Oxford. Hopefully it's an even better time with a Stone Cold Stunner top 5 win on the road. And, ooh, man, that's a good Corey Price trivia question. When was the last time Kentucky upset a top 5 team on the road? Whew.
Louisville with Lamar. I guess they dropped out of the top
Yeah.
5.
So, I
the week
mean,
before.
there's been some 10s. Like, I feel like one of the Florida games was a top 10. But the 5 threshold, that's one that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, well, I don't even. I'm trying to think.
I don't know if
Brooks
there's
didn't
been
get a
one in
top
our
5 one.
Yeah, I don't know if there's one in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah, I mean,
maybe when they
if you
went to Happy Valley back in the 70s and won that game.
yeah,
Maybe you have to go back that far.
there's pros and cons with this schedule. The cons are obvious. You play what might be 4 of the best 5 teams in college football. 3 on the road. So that is obvious. But when you have a team, which I think in a roster as good as Kentucky's, if you play well and get one of these teams on a B game or a C game, you've got a real chance to win. And then you win a game like that, that matters. Like if they held on against Georgia, Nick, like that is a win where you have to start talking about Stoops differently. And if you're throwing out he hasn't beat anybody record after that, like piss off, And I feel the same about this one. If you go down and beat an Ole Miss team this good, that one, it's one you talk about. And that's I talked about the World Series when Kentucky made the World Series and Nolan McCarthy's slide. Like that moment is just an iconic moment. You hang posters of that and you slap it all over your stadium and your facility where you show recruits. You win a game like this, that game, they have that video screen inside the practice facility. That game should just be played nonstop on the official visit weekends. And it can be a big moment for your program if you can get one. Now, can you get one? It's a bigger question, but you get 4 opportunities to try and go do it here. And let's see what they can do with those 4 opportunities.
They'll get to take a swing at the Ole Miss Rebels on Saturday. We will submit our final selections on Pigskin Preview Thursday afternoon here on the KSR YouTube channel. Make sure you're locked in for our picks. We're due for a great bounce back week. We're due for a great bounce back week. Before we go, we're obligated as a football show to talk about Matt Sluka out at UNLV. It's the most perfect story to get takes because you can argue for either side on who is right or wrong because we have such a stupid system in place. I mean, I think both sides would be much happier if they didn't have to operate this week and you just agreed and you signed contracts and you moved on. But the stupid system that we're operating under, it's all this gray area. And so you can pick and choose which side you think is right or wrong. Some of the initial reporting is that Sluka was told he was going to get $100,000. They kept kicking the can down the road, and then said they could only get $3 for him. So he's kind of putting their foot down, calling their bluff. The thing that's I don't know if
who would you rather believe? A middleman agent in kind of this gray area world, or what do you want to believe? College football coach who's doing what he's got to do and recruiting to help keep his job. Which side do you want to believe there?
And here's the unfortunate part. They're 3-0. They got 2 wins over Big 12 teams. They're open. It's their first game Mountain West plays against a good Fresno State team. But look what happened with Florida when they botched the Jaden Rashada situation. Barry Odom's doing a great job out there, but he's got this happening. And then meanwhile, UNLV is trying to fight for which conference they're going to be in. Are they going to be in Mountain West Diesel or Mountain West Light, which that's what the Pac-12 is becoming. I don't know why they just didn't say, all right, all of our Mountain West schools, let's just be the Pac-12 now. Because, I
think you got 2 separate entities there. You've got the Pac-12 brand and the name and a commissioner and a staff of people versus the Mountain West brand and conference and commissioner. So you have 2, like it's really an administration fight.
Yeah, exactly. An illegal fight that's happening concurrently. I think it's not a hot take. It sucks because Sluka isn't that great of a football player, but he's fun because he runs it and he's tough. He's hard nosed. I think he's got a 43% or something completion percentage when throws downfield.
Yes.
Like he's
on all throws. I think he's under 50%. He's a run quarterback.
Yeah,
he's run first, but he's fun to watch. Again, Nick, like Some of these transfers are mercenaries.
Yeah.
They're in it for the dollar bill.
Dude came from Holy Cross. Like, where he
Yeah.
was there to get paid. I can't blame him for wanting to squeeze as much juice out of his final remaining years of college eligibility.
And the only leverage he has is to redshirt, because he can't come back next year. This is his last year of eligibility. The only leverage he has is the redshirt. So you want to prevent this? Get rid of the redshirt rule. If you play in any game, you burn it, or make them employees. I mean, this kid you just gotta, like, I've talked about this. They have to just do it. There's no real way around it. They've got to be employees. That's the only way. There's still, we haven't really talked about this, but the judge told them to laughed at them and threw the case out for the House versus.
Yeah.
They were just like, this is not, you can't do this. So now that this big plan, and they thought they were in the right direction, it's just they just put a lighter to it and burned it. So now they got to figure out how to get around it. I don't see how there's any other way. They have to just be employees. And then then you can do a CBA and you can have real contracts with them instead of this weird gray area you're trying to swim in. I know they don't want to do that, but I don't see how there's any other way. That to me is like, well, it's just another reason why they need to be employees for situations like this. But like for Sluka, I know he's getting hammered by some, but this is, again, it's a dollars and cents issue. It's his chance to make money. This is his, whatever side you believe, and I don't care what side it is, whether they promise and they're not paying in a certain amount, or if he went to them and said, I want more. This is the only leverage he has. So he's playing his leverage card. And that's what this system has created.
And the thing is that's even more unfortunate is it feels like it's a zero-sum game too, where it's either 100,000 or nothing. And if that's my options, well, I'm not going to play.
Support UNLV's quarterback, Jaden Mayava, had an awesome season last year. He transferred to go be a backup. Committed to Georgia. He's at USC. He's Miller Moss's backup quarterback. Money. He did it because UNLV couldn't pay him. Yep. So they get Sluka. Who knows what went on in that little weird deal area to get him. And now, it shouldn't surprise you that this happened. And it'll happen at a power conference school. I mean, MJ Morris kind of did this at NC State last year.
Yeah.
He was a backup. Brennan Armstrong gets injured / wasn't playing well. They put Morris in. They won a few games. Morris says, hey, I want to keep my red shirt because I want to go play somewhere else and eventually try to make more money, essentially. Now, he goes to Maryland, doesn't win the starting quarterback job, but these are the kind of situations these rules have presented and that they create. Notre Dame just had a player, Marcus Freeman said, that he's redshirting to transfer. Do I think it's dumb that players can do this? Yes. Get rid of the redshirt rule. But if you don't want to, but also there's pros to the redshirt rule.
Jason Patterson.
Say Chip Trainum sprains his ankle in this Ole Miss game.
Yep.
I hope he doesn't, but let's just say he sprains his ankle. He's got to miss the next 3 weeks. He has a red shirt on the table where he can still play this year and come back because of bad injury luck. But he could also take advantage of the system if he was awesome and say, Kentucky, pay me $3 billion. I've just ran for 260 yards against Ole Miss. And Kentucky can either do it or he can redshirt, try to make more. I mean, that's just a system. There's nonstop negotiations. It's nonstop. There's no stopping. They can come back to the table and say, I want more money at any point, and you have nothing to hold them to.
Because there's no collective bargaining agreement that says that they can't.
There's no contracts. It's sham contracts. It's just, hey,
Which that is going to be the how many more? Sluka is the first high-profile one of this magnitude where it's starting quarterback of an undefeated top 25 team. Granted, it's group of 5, but this is the first time where you're seeing a quarterback. It's different for reserve guy X, Y, and Z that you don't really know, but for the quarterback, that's
they're getting in the driver's seat because they got another game with Syracuse at home on October 5th. Win that, they could go 3-0 against power conference teams. And if they just get out of the Mountain West with, let's say they're 13-1, Mountain West champion, they're an easy pick for that bid. And they're going to the playoff, and they're going to play Notre Dame or Alabama or whoever. And Barry Odom is getting a job because of that. Maybe not this cycle, but the next cycle, he's for sure getting a job. But now that's might be off the table because one, because they couldn't pay their quarterback last year, and two, the transfer they brought in, they can't figure out what to do financially.
What are the chances that somehow this gets figured out before Saturday? Because can't you just go to the slot machine and pull the lever a few times and get some Sluka bucks out? I mean, you're in Las Vegas for crying out loud. Go turn 500 into 50,000, Barry. Come on, get hot. Just get hot at the craps table.
I thought that maybe could figure it out, but I do wonder if it's so far down the road that if it's gotten to this point, it's got to be pretty bad.
Well,
it's probably been boiling for a couple weeks.
But now you have public pressure, and I don't know what exactly that means for UNLV in the climate of that city here, whatever it may be. But this is a new wrinkle. It's a new wrinkle to the situation.
Yeah. In Las Vegas sports radio, they're talking about should Gardner Minshew be benched. Yeah. Not necessarily like what's the number one topic today.
But I think Sluka becomes it though. And that UNLV football would never be the number one topic on Vegas sports radio. Just Raiders, Golden Knights. Maybe the Running Rebs have a team that's in the NCAA tournament. So it's fascinating. I would much rather see UNLV play football because I've enjoyed the weeknight slate games with him so far. But yeah, just world we live in.
It's just
it's real dumb.
This is until they figure it out. It's just gonna be more of this. So buckle in. And there's issues like this that at every school, not every school, but a lot of schools that we just don't know about. Payments not being met.
I saw people alluding.
Look at what happened in Louisville. Look what happened in Louisville. Depending on what story you believe that came out of there.
You had some similar stuff with Quinshon Judkins. There was some weird stuff happening last year, and now you've got people saying like, he just kept coming back asking for more money last year, and they were kind of getting sick of it. So wild time we're living in for college sports. It'll be even wilder if Kentucky can knock off the 5th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels on Saturday. We can't wait to see you down there at the Grove. For Adam Luckett, I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats and go Crow Green.